Those should be coming through. So the first item on the agenda, you'll see in red, there's a call to action to read something underneath of it. So we'll just need to call the meeting to order by reading the
disclosure. Perfect. So in honor of the Lillooet, the village of Pemberton acknowledge that we are meeting within the unceded territory of the Lillooet Nation. So this meeting of the Advisory Design Review Commission is being held in person and virtually. For those members of the public in attendance, please note that this meeting is a live webinar and is being recorded. A recording of the meeting will be available on the village website following the meeting.
Just a recommendation for item number 2 that the agenda be approved as presented.
Perfect. So the recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. And should I read also the adoption of minutes from the last meeting?
We have to take a motion first to approve the agenda. So do you have a motion?
Yeah.
I'll move that we approve.
Okay. So motion. And now we go on to item 3, the adoption of the meeting minutes, and same thing followed with a motion.
Perfect. So the chair asks for a motion and seconder for the recommendation, which is that the minute of the ADRC meeting of February 17, 2022 be approved as presented. All in favor? Perfect. Great.
Okay, so Mark Varsevsky is going to present. I'm just gonna put this up on screen here. Okay, Mark, take it away.
Perfect. So my name is Mark Barshevskis. I'm a consulting planner for the village in Pemberton. And then just go to the next slide. The whole purpose of this is to give the ADRC an introduction to the Harrow Road project, and then for you to provide recommendations to council. So back in the spring, the rezoning and DP applications were submitted, and then internal and external referrals are ongoing currently. Yesterday, the ALUC did a review of the rezoning application, and then today it's the ADRC July 21st for the DP. So the site is just south of the Glen neighborhood. The PID is 023384018. The OCP designation's Gateway. The zone is commercial tourism. And the DP area that we're analyzing, or you're going to be analyzing today, is the Gateway development. And adjacent land uses, we've got the residential to the north, which is the Glen. East, which is outside the village boundary, is agricultural. South, we have commercial, the Pemberton Valley Lodge. And then to the west and the northwest, it's a mixture of residential and commercial. Next slide. Here's a photo of the existing site condition, treed, and there has been an arborist report done. So for the proposal, it's a mixed-use building, 5 stories, 63 affordable residential rental units ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms, and that will be secured with the housing agreement. And they are working with BC Housing on this. They're a partner here. The main floor, or sorry, the first floor is going to be a commercial area around 836 square meters. And that's going to be the future home of the Sea to Sky Community Services. That proposed building height is 19 meters, 5 stories. And for parking, it's around 79 parking stalls. And for the architectural style, one could say it's modern contemporary. Next slide. No worries. So what needs to occur legislatively? Number 1 is the zoning bylaw amendment, or like that rezoning. So the existing zone is this commercial tourism C2 zone, and it'd be rezoning into a comprehensive development zone. And these CD zones are more or less custom or one-of-a-kind zones. This is normal practice for BC municipalities and also the village of Pemberton. I believe there's 5 CD zones are currently in the village of Pemberton. So it's nothing out of the norm. And then after that, the major development permit application DP093, that's the second application being processed. The zoning bylaw, even though both applications are running concurrently, that rezoning must be approved first before the DP is approved. And as said, or as already said, the ALUC kind of reviewed that zoning bylaw amendment application last night. So today we're focusing on the DP. I'm going to run through the supporting policy and just kind of get to the DP because we've looked at this. Well, you've seen this in the report, and then the ALUC looked at this, but it's within the urban growth boundary. That gives council the right to look at these types of applications. Under the OCP, it's gateway, and then under the OCP housing policies 5.9.1, they do meet, this application does meet those policies. Next slide. And then the village did an age-friendly affordable housing action plan in 2019. And one can argue that the project aligns with all those policies that came out of that plan as well. So under map B, we are in that gateway land use. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that red star. And then next slide. And this is really what we're reviewing today. So it is in this development permit area of gateway development. So I just want to read out what we should be what you should be analyzing today. So the project should create a strong sense of arrival to the Pemberton community through natural landscape and built gateway elements, provide visual and physical cohesiveness that draws interest to the community, and presents services and accommodations targeted to traveling public that create an attractive community identity and character. So study of the building, the site features will be like a green buffer of trees around the north, east, and south edges. And this allows the building to blend into the surrounding nature while also shielding the residents or the new residents from the busy highway. The site is organized with vehicle access points off of Harrow Street. And the building is at the south end to give the buffer to the Glen neighborhood on the north. But then when you're traveling along Highway 99 or Portage Road, you're going to see that vegetation buffer and an architecturally styled building opposed to just a giant parking lot. This is a shadow analysis. And as you can see with the proposed 5 stories or 19 meters, the shadows do not affect the neighborhood to the north. And that's also because the building is situated to the south on the parcel. And a cross section of the proposed building, we've got a typical single family residence on the left-hand side that you'd find in the Glen, their backyard, then a vegetation buffer, the parking lot, the 5-story building, another vegetation buffer, and then Harrow Road or Highway 99 on the right-hand side. So as for building form, here's some renderings of a proposed building. One looking south towards Mount Currie, or sorry, let's say the first one is looking south towards Mount Currie and a proposed fence and that vegetation buffer. The second one to the right in the top right-hand corner, again on Harrow Road, looking south towards Mount Currie. And then bottom left, the view from Portage / Highway 99, and then the view of the front entrance. So the proposal demonstrates an organized design in relation to the setbacks of the facade. It's not just like one blank slate. The site entrance is off Harrow Road, and that's going to connect to the new active transportation trail towards the Arn Canal. And then there's a large canopy designed with accessibility in mind. You can see in the bottom right hand for the main entrance. As for construction materials, the materials are chosen to be durable to withstand our local climate. And it's a mixture of brick, lap siding, and these kind of like natural tones and colors. For landscape and open spaces, this was kind of touched on in one of the slides before, but we have the green buffer to the north, south, and to the east. And there's also some proposed trees kind of in the walkway on site, within the parking area. I would like to mention there's no mention within the development application of any site enhancements such as public art, flags, banners, or water features. And snow storage is placed in 2 locations along Harrow Road, which will accommodate that heavy snow during the winter months. The landscaping plan is also using native species that are accommodating to the Village of Pemberton plant list. And that considers the 4 seasons we have here. Here's another example of an open space for the proposed development, kind of this community garden, which would be on the west side of the site. And as for parking and circulation, it would be accessing off of Harrow Road. 79 parking stalls are proposed. There has been a transportation or parking analysis review done by Bunt and Associates, which is a qualified engineer. This is a third-party engineer or a third-party consultant. And I think these 3 quotes are good to read out. In total, the proposed supply would fall 35 spaces short of the total parking requirement. But then given that the development is planned to consist of entirely rental units targeted to lower income seniors and families, the bylaw rate would likely result in an oversupply of parking. And it's also important to note that SSCS, which will be a tenant in the first commercial floor, they have transportation services such as the Better at Home program, where they actually drive those residents back and forth to whether it be the grocery store or other needs, which you wouldn't really find in other development applications. So that definitely helps with that parking study to lower those required spaces. Go back to that. And then here's an example of this is like an auto turn analysis of a fire truck. So they do have the ability to access the building in an appropriate way with that type of parking design on that lot. So here's a draft resolution. The Advisory Design Review Commission recommends the council support proposed development permit application DP 93 SSCS affordable housing, subject to the following recommendations. Thanks.
So now you have time to ask questions directly to Mark about his presentation.
Hi, Mark. Sorry for the confusion, but was the rezoning approved yesterday? Was that what you said in there?
The rezoning has not been approved, but they gave resolutions to council. Yeah, the rezoning has not been approved at all.
The ALUC doesn't approve it, it would be council. They're just same commission acting on land use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So similar to this commission, nothing gets approved here. It's just recommendations to council.
What was their recommendation we made?
Don't I bring it up?
Sure, yeah.
I don't have it on there actually. Actually, no, I didn't.
I might have it here.
So
I can read it. Do you have it on there?
this is their recommendation here, and the recommendations begin where my mouse is. So surface parking. Can I read it out loud?
Sure. So surface parking design should integrate green features and improve its general environmental sustainability. Parking requirements should be reevaluated to consider local examples / studies. Applicants should be required to flag any significant trees being removed as part of the site development and note efforts to retain. That was as per the arborist report. The visual design of the site should reflect the intention of the gateway, including the design of the fence between the building and the highway. So that's more for this type of commission, not the ALUC. The rezoning should retain the current permitted C2 uses and should not become more permissive. The rezoning retains the ability to achieve the existing permitted density through the future development of the remainder of the site. So that's the permitted density under the C2, because remember, we're going to the CD zone, but again, that's more the ALUC and not this commission. The ALUC encourages the applicant to consider future childcare use through the development permit. Consideration that the application is consistent with the village's transportation plans and plans around multi-use pathways and the connectivity within the community. And applicant works with MOTI to address an increase in vehicle and pedestrian traffic at the intersection of Hale Road and 99. So some of those resolutions would be okay for this commission to discuss, but a lot of them are ALUC. So I do advise not to touch on land use and that type of.
Yeah.
Wait,
How does this development fit within the gateway TP?
Right. Sorry, I don't know. I'm just gonna speak. Okay.
Go through the chair.
Chair. I know we're meant to just speak to form and character, but the density on the site, I think, is important because future buildings on there would sort of impact the way I think about this application. Because I'm looking at this building, but I kind of want to know if their intention is a second building on site, because I don't know how I'd feel about that. So does the existing, I guess, what are the differences between the existing zoning and what they're asking for in terms of site coverage?
So the existing C2 zoning allows for 50%. This proposal is approximately 9.5%.
Oh,
for site coverage.
so they've got another 40%. If they weren't going for rezoning, there could be an additional 40% coverage under.
Yeah, if they were not going for rezoning. Yeah.
As the status quo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And in their CD application, what density are they asking for?
so that CD zone has not been created yet. It will be provided at first and second reading.
Okay.
But like, for example, one of those resolutions from the ALUC, they said to keep the existing C2 density.
Right.
Is that going to happen?
We don't know.
We don't know, but like that's what they're recommending.
Okay.
But I would like to make it clear that this application is definitely applying for one building.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the future? No idea. And I think the applicant can speak to that as well.
Okay.
On the parking issue, is there a reason why they weren't able to meet the parking requirement?
I don't know if there's a reason why they can't meet the parking requirement as so much. They just don't think it's necessary. Like, do they actually need that much asphalt in the area when they think they don't need the actual parking spaces? They're gonna be left dormant.
So is there a procedure to like exempt them, or is it just they propose, like we have a requirement and then they propose something and then we accept it?
Yeah, under the C2 zone, we can, within that zone, we can say, or we can't say how much parking should be allowed. So if we take the engineering report and realize that that's okay, then you can put that within that C2 zone.
Okay.
CD zone, sorry.
Are the proponents going to be open for questions? Are they
Yep.
Yeah,
here?
right now it's just questions
Yeah.
for staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a breakdown of, I remember reading somewhere that, 30% of the units were being made available to, seniors or do we have that breakdown available?
Yeah.
It's on one of the slides or are there?
Not on one of my slides, but the applicant will have that. Again, that's not really related to a DP per se,
I
right?
know, but it's going to speak to parking.
Yeah. Fair,
So
oh,
that-
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Part of-
Yeah.
Based on that information.
Yeah.
My question is, I couldn't quite tell, but is there a fence that goes around? There's a playground right by the highway there. Is there a fence or is it trees that just go around?
It's trees, but also a proposed 6-foot cedar fence. And that is because of a safety concern.
Yeah.
Well, you see, I don't actually have a picture of that. Like,
I thought there,
so.
Do you
okay.
see?
Yeah, so there's, you can see the proposal, but that's on the north side of the site, but it'd be a similar fence on the south side of the site for safety concerns with the residents.
Do we know the materials of that fence or is that just a rendering?
Right now, they're saying cedar.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But on Harrow, it's different. It's like a little,
Yeah, it's that,
yeah.
There's a name for it. It's out of my head, but
but
slip rail. Thank you.
And the height of that fence is 6 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cedar fence is 6 feet.
Okay. And my other question is, where on Harrow will the snow be dumped? Because we had a very, very heavy snowfall last year, and there was no room on Harrow for snow. So my question is, were they using that area previously to dump snow? Like from my memory, it seems to me that they were using that area. So where on Harrow,
Well, as under my understanding that they're dumping like the parking lot snow within the greenway buffer along Harrow. The applicant can speak more to that, but they've got space on the site plan to dump snow within that greenway buffer that is north-south on Harrow.
Mhm.
But on their land, on their site, not the actual road right of way.
Oh, okay. Does this affect the Glen in the sense that because before I feel like that space was utilized for snow dumping. Now that they won't have that space for snow dumping, where will the snow dumping go?
From the Glen neighborhood to somewhere?
Yeah.
it would be captured in a site servicing agreement, which is required before a building permit issuance. So if they were changing the current site servicing and snow dumping areas of what's already engineered by the village for the Glen, then sometimes what happens is there's offsite dumping that occurs. So they take it from one site and put it to another, but that would all be captured through a servicing agreement with the village.
Okay, perfect. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions of staff or?
Speaking about the height of the building, so just confirming it's 5 feet higher, 5 feet taller than the existing zoning allows, just under 5 feet.
No. It's the existing zoning is 10.5 meters
Okay,
and they're proposing 19 meters.
okay.
The existing C2 zone permits a maximum building height of 10.5.
Okay,
They're proposing 19.
and the 19 is where am I getting this 5 feet?
I think you're getting that 5 feet because there has been cross sections seen in public engagements of what a 4-story building would look like on the site.
Okay.
And it has been said that if a 4-story building were approved, that would also need a rezoning.
Yeah.
And now they're proposing a 5-story building. There's potentially a difference of
Got it. Okay.
but yeah, I definitely want to make it clear, existing zone 10.5, rezoning 19. And they are not applying for a 4-story building.
Correct.
And if they're ever comparing a 4-story building, that's fine, you can compare it, but again, that is not the application we're looking at, and that 4-story building would need a rezoning
So isn't there,
As well,
as well.
either way.
Either way.
isn't there a height restriction in the village for, isn't that based on fire trucks reaching? Isn't there a building height restriction?
We've been told by fire that they can reach a 5-story building. There's no height
That's 62
restriction.
feet.
Yeah, there's no height restriction per se.
Any further questions of staff? Okay. Through the chair, I will then promote the applicants to participants. Just give me a second here. Jesse, go ahead if you are beginning, I believe, right?
Yeah, why don't I start us off? So thank you, panel, for having us tonight. We have 3 folks here, including myself, from our project team. So I'll just introduce quickly and then jump right into it. So my name is Jessie Abraham. I'm Housing Director with Sea to Sky Community Services. We also have Casey Clerkson here. He's our development consultant working on the project. And then we also have Chelsea Mueller here from Station 1 Architects, our architect working on the project. And Chelsea, if you're running the slideshow, if you don't mind starting it, I'll give an introduction and then pass off to our project team here. So let's jump right in. So just to give a quick overview about Sea to Sky Community Services, the agency is a charity and nonprofit society that has been operating in the Sea to Sky corridor since 1978. So we first opened an office in Pemberton in 1992. 30 years ago, we offer 32 social service and community programs in Pemberton. We serve over 2,200 individuals, and the numbers we find are increasing on average by 8% year over year. We employ 15 full-time staff. Our programs include child development, food bank, community living, and adult and family services, among others. Regarding our current social service space, we recently experienced a change in landlord, and the future of our lease is unknown. Our proposed project here tonight includes relocating our current program and office space to not only meet the demand and expand our existing services, but to ensure a future for much needed social service programs in community. Next slide, please. A little about the community context before we jump in about the project. So like many communities in BC, Pemberton is in a housing crisis. Pemberton is the fastest growing community in southwestern BC. In the last 5 years, the village grew by 32%. In the past 10 years, the rents have increased by 74%. So in terms of numbers, 10 years ago, a 2-bedroom cost $1,300 per month to rent. Now a 2-bedroom rents at almost $2,400 a month. We know that these rent rates are now unattainable for the average individual or family. There's a critical lack of affordable housing supply. The Lions Villa is currently the only non-market housing in the village with only 30 units. There is some market rental housing, but not enough. So that kind of provides some context, and I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea, our architect, to provide a project overview.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jesse. So I'm not going to reiterate some of the stats that Mark already did because you guys know this information, but yeah, 63 suites for this project. I know that there was a question about the breakdown of the suites earlier. That stat's right here. We can flip back to it if you'd like, but it's 5 stories as noted. The ground floor is commercial and then residential above. Some other quick stats here, 700 square feet of community programming space and then 2,000 square feet of commercial space. I think it just as like a fundamental for this project, I think it's really important to note, BC Housing is a partner with this project. They're providing the funds and we are required to abide by their guidelines. And that brings a whole host of really positive things to this project, such as step code 4 for sustainability. And what that really means is you're going to see exterior insulation, you're going to see really great roof insulation, an airtight building, which adds to its performance in energy. And then there's also requiremements of reducing gas house emissions that are quite high. And I feel like I'm missing one more thing. And the windows are of a high standard as well. So those requirements are there, and I'll get into a couple of other requirements as part of this design that we folded in that I think are of great benefit. So a couple other comments. Yeah, I think that's good for this slide. So talking about the site plan, giving you guys a better picture of why we've chosen some of the choices. As Mark noted, we are positioned southern, closer to the highway. So there's a bit of a buffer with the existing community that's single family residential, and we definitely can appreciate that. There is a green buffer, which we'll get to in a moment, that circles the site. But as you approach the site, again, if you're a resident or using the services, you're entering off of Harrow Road here. And this is our main entrance in the middle. So that's as an automobile access, that's how you're approaching this site. And that's how we're making that friendly. It's important to note, and talking about circulation, bikes are a big thing in Pemberton. So this is right along a pathway here, which our project, can I zoom in? Oh, I can't. I'll zoom in a moment on another slide here, but our pathway is accommodating that, and we'll work with the Village of Pemberton in the service agreement and offsites to define that pathway and retain it. Other circulation items, accessibility. This project has, I'll just go back one, has 87 adaptable suites and 13 accessible suites. So we definitely have people who might have mobility issues, whether physical or not, visual or non-visual. So we thought it was really important to make, the entry really noticeable, so it's easy wayfinding. We have paths to the main amenity spaces, and all the grading is appropriate for somebody in a wheelchair, for instance. Our main amenity spaces in the next slide are off to the west side here, as Mark had noted previously. Other quick comments before we dive into some details. I think that's the main items. Yeah, so really what this design, here, I'm gonna see. Okay, no, I'm gonna get into the edge of the project in a second with the green buffer, but you can really see this green buffer along in this rendering along Harrow Road. The tree, I did take a look at that arborist report right before this meeting, and there are some trees that can be retained, and they are noted to be retained in that arborist report. So we're going to take good care of that because there are some mature enough trees and healthy enough trees on this site. So we'll make sure that we, have that relationship with that. And this is just another image on Harrow Road. You guys have seen this in Mark's presentation. These are just a bit bigger, looking towards Mount Currie, and 99's right there. So this is on Harrow. So this would be your entry into the lot. And then again, this is just that fence view from the back neighbor on the north side. Okay. So this is a site, just a site section to give a little bit of context for this as well. I think it's just really important to understand that we are trying to add some significant buffers, whether that's with the community over here or it's with the road and the highway, right? So we have that nice green buffer, and really it's going to provide privacy for the tenants of this space too. We want this to be a vibrant, living development for people who are seeking affordable housing, and that's our main goal. Provide something that somebody can call home and be really proud of. Okay, again, this is that shadow study. Siting it south is really beneficial, quite clearly, to the north neighbor. I'm just making sure. Oh, I did want to note a couple of, so I'm going to go back 1 second, some critical numbers here. There are some bike stalls right at the front of the building here. I think there's 12 outside, and then there's 78 on the interior for long-term storage and more secured storage of bicycles. Parking stalls were noted earlier, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those details. And then snow management, I was going to touch on it anyways, but I'll highlight it even more. You're going to notice that our property line is this dark line here. And then there is quite a bit of a setback for the highway and off of Harrow Road. And that is for mitigation. I think, road transportation's already built that in a little bit. So there are, I remember being there last year, taking photos of the site and when there was the snow on site. So I definitely can appreciate where those comments are coming from. And yeah, it's partly built into the boundaries of those spaces. Okay, I'll flip back ahead. Stay on track. Again, we just included this because this has been a comment previously just about our height of our building. We have included our FAR on here. It's 0.39, which is a fairly low FAR, and it's not very dense. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. That's the stat. Okay, this is the great diagram that kind of shows us what we're kind of getting at, some of the major movements, especially coming from the public engagement, and yeah, and putting it into our design. So the green buffer, quite clearly you can see that. You guys have seen this diagram previously, but I also want to touch on the storm management. Our engineers have taken a very good look at this, and this is how if you look at the blue, that's how it's running. It is not impeding, it is not intended to go on any neighboring lots, and it follows all guidelines of the Village of Pemberton. Our public spaces, so we have our playground that we're proposing because we intend for families to live here, especially with those larger seats. So our playground off to the west here, which is protected next to the building from a wind that may blow through, or just easy access to the main doors of the building as well. And then our gardening beds on the side there, because we also heard that that was really important and valuable from the community. And then because we have such a large commercial spaces, there's going to be a lot of people working there. So we thought that they could use an outdoor patio space, just an extra space to go have their lunch in the summer or whatnot. So there is a little patio space carved out for them as well. Okay. So I've included our landscape plan, and as Mark mentioned earlier, we do adhere to the Village of Pemberton species list, and yeah, I think our landscape plan, obviously it creates that buffer, I can keep using that word, but of trees too, right? You need that verticality as the project gets older and grows. Yeah. Okay, keep going. These are just some renders of the site. So on the left here, we have, as you enter that the main building, which is with that canopy. I'll get into the canopy design in a moment. But yeah, just a little bit of a green, moment of refuge in a parking lot. Those are really important, but inclusive of that is also, it provides a big wayfinding or beacon, if you will, for pedestrians to walk through the parking lot safely. So we just thought that that's been a successful design technique previously. So we've added that in. Yeah, and then just our planters and our playground off to the west. So I'll just kind of work through this. This is our level 1. You'll notice that most of our commercials on this side and protecting the amenity spaces of the residents. That is that pink. We have an amenity room that is dictated by BC Housing. So it has lots of good spaces for people to, or opportunities for people to interact. It's really important with affordable housing. And above here, our typical suite layout for level 2. Level 2, we do have an FCL that we have to adhere to, and our project is, there is a report submitted as along part of our DP. We have our electrical and our mechanical rooms up on level 2 to protect the services of the building. And then this is from level 3 to 6. You'll note that most of our 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms are more to the outside, to the major corners, which has an idea. Okay, almost there. So talking about the exterior design and some of the materiality of the project. Our main goals were exactly of the gateway, something strong, simple, functional building form. That's exactly from the development permit guidelines, and that's what we're striving for. In doing so, also modern and contemporary, because this building is meant to withstand many years. As a BC Housing project. The durability is really important. We'll get to durability. I have one more durability comment. Our undulation of our facade with the balconies and the pushing and pulling really break up that massive 5-story building feeling. Also, the balconies will speak to that too. Yeah. Usually BC Housing doesn't like balconies, but it's important. People need to be outside, especially in Pemberton. I think that we heard that from the public too, so we made sure that got into our design. Yeah, form is simple and functional. The facades do comprise of several finishes and natural tones. They were chosen in harmony of Pemberton too. So if you look at the elevations, I don't think are very true to the design. I think that this rendering is more so because you see those insets of where you undulate the building. And those insets are where we've added those wood tones. So these wood tones are so important because it makes it a little bit more of a human level, makes it warmer, and that also adds to the feeling of a home and less institutional. Okay. Oh, sorry, before I go too far, our large canopy, it was a meaningful design choice. It's a wayfinding technique that many people use. And I think it works really successfully in this project, especially with, you can kind of get lost on the main level if you don't make a strong impression about what your main entrance is. And so this is our residential main entrance. Okay, last comment I'm going to make, and then I'm done, is SEPTED. So SEPTED, I know you guys are very familiar with it, crime prevention through environmental design. We have a lot of windows on this project, especially with those commercial spaces and the residential amenity spaces. We think it's really important to have eyes on the space. I'm not going to say eyes on the street because there's very little street for this project, but eyes on the space. There's a lot of residential suites that look out onto the spaces, and we just thought that was just such a critical thing to have people feel safe, feel really proud of the building, because that builds SEPTED strength. This project's also going to be well lit, which also provides that ability to protection and accessibility. People don't really talk about how designing for all mobility issues or accessible issues, whether visual or not, really helps septet as well. So having this be a very low barrier living in terms of accessibility is quite critical. Okay, I did have this slide too, but Mark already showed it, so it's very neutral and durable. That's the second last thing, second double last thing. Durability of materials. It's all hardy and brick, and that's also a kind of a BC housing guideline that we are adhering to with this design too. Okay, that's my presentation or our presentation.
Great. So I believe now it's time for commission members to ask for some questions to applicants. So I'll invite my colleagues to go ahead. They have some.
I have a question involving the accessibility. So for, say, a pedestrian or a biker that wants to leave the parking lot, is there the only entrance out onto Harrow or exit out onto Harrow, an entry into Harrow? And oh yeah.
All right, because I wanted to zoom in for you. I had to pop out of that. So I think the landscape is a bit easier to delineate where those paths are. So yeah, Harrow Road is obviously a big one, but you also have this connection to the path over here. That's not, we have a suggestion here, but we're still talking with, it'll be in relation with staff because the path is technically not our path, and it's not on our property line mostly. So that's going to be with the village as well.
Yeah, and Chelsea, if I may, through the chair, the intent here is that there is a sort of a pre-existing path, as you guys are aware of, that kind of meanders on and off the site. So unfortunately, this slide here doesn't really illustrate, but the intent is that residents will have options to either walk off through on Harrow Road and around, but there you go. We are proposing a connection to the arm trail in that western portion of our site. So the idea would be to enhance, to develop a trail system that would allow individuals to whether it be on a bike or pedestrians to connect to the existing trail systems.
Yeah. So if you were leaving on Harrow, like my concern is, if you're coming out of the Glen or coming out of the Glen, is there enough access way along the side of Harrow to get onto that trail?
Yeah.
On Highway 99.
So what this, and if I may, again, sorry, Chelsea, through the chair, the property line is in black, but the fence would actually be along where the green line is. So you can see that the pedestrian trail is actually just outside of that fence, and it would be kind of on our site and then off our site, and then it actually kind of has to go up in behind the existing pump station and then back. So the idea is we still have to work through this, but the intent here is a commitment from Sea to Sky is to provide access for individuals who would be walking down south from the Glen to access a trail right on the corner there of Harrow Road and the highway that would be offset from the highway, that they could then connect into that arm trail and arm canal.
Okay, great.
Sorry, not sure how questions go. Is there a reason why we can't connect on the site to this trail rather than trying to connect off-site?
Through the chair, to Colin, we are actually proposing the connection to be on site. It's just how you would get to it. So if you look at the bottom right corner there, that's actually on site that we're proposing the start of the trail, but we don't have all that. Like obviously Harrow Road is off site, right? So are you suggesting why we wouldn't have the connection start further west so people would come through the site and connect on like the north or center of the site? Is that what you're thinking?
I guess the question is that the connection you've noted on the left side of the parking area, you're saying that's off site, and is there a guarantee that's going to exist if that site gets developed?
Yeah, so that is that connection to the left of the parking is on site. The property line there in black. So north of it is on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, understood. Thank you.
One thing I don't know if I can comment just on that confusion. Is that over here, we do have a big riparian area setback. So that's why we also decided to hug this corner over here too. Sorry, just to clarify. So that's why it kind of looks like there's a line delineation, but it's also to just retain trees and not touch the riparian area.
A couple
Go
questions
through the chair.
through the chair.
Yes.
Actually, now that you brought it up, Chelsea, can you speak to that riparian area again? So on that undeveloped portion of the property, is there a viable building site on that half of the property, taking into account the riparian setbacks?
Chelsea, if I may, through the chair, and apologies, ma'am, I can't see your name because you don't have a Zoom.
Oh, it's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. So the riparian area is actually quite far west of the sites. There could potentially, yeah, exactly. It's really in that corner. But what Chelsea's identifying right now is that north-south and there's east-west. There's a whole host of statutory right-of-ways with existing infrastructure from the Glen neighborhood down into that pump station. So to answer your question, is there a potential for a future development? The answer is yes, there could be a potential future development in the future, but do know that it would be very challenging given all that infrastructure that's existing. You can see those statutory right-of-ways kind of laid out on the survey. So within that, sort of call it east of those statutory right-of-ways and west of the parking lot, there is that small little area that potentially could be developed in the future. But I would strongly suggest that today we are really focusing on just this project. We have Sea to Sky has no intentions at this stage for a second building or a future building.
Okay, thank you. Next question, the playground area, is that designated for use of the residents only, or is it for the proposed daycare or is there public access? So basically, who's using the playground? Is it a mishmash of everybody? We don't know.
No, it's meant for the residents.
The residents, and then if a daycare goes into the commercial space, they'll have to use the daycare as well. There'll be a licensing requirement so that you can mix between daycare and residents.
No, with my understanding of daycares, which we've done a couple recently, there's pretty strict requirements of daycares. This playground would not be able to be mixed with residents and the daycare use.
Okay, so is there an additional site for a playground for the daycare?
I can speak to that. Yeah. So right now there's consideration of how to include a daycare, but we haven't committed to that yet. There's quite a bit of background work that has to go into that. We do operate childcare spaces in Squamish, and that needs to come with a funder as well. So we operate under MCFD funding. And right now we don't have any commitments from a funder. So there's a few things for us to sort out in terms of programming. If Sea to Sky Community Services is able to provide a childcare space. So right now it's a consideration as we go through the design process, but we have not yet designed any of the spaces for childcare. We do plan on including it as a allowable use in the proposed CD zone.
Right, but to have some forethought into where that second playground might go might be a good idea.
Absolutely.
Okay. A couple other comments. I have the balconies, which are great. I'm glad you've included them, but my preference would be that they are not see-through. So the design would be either, I don't know, foggy glass or something like that versus being able to see everyone's items from the street. and from the neighboring houses. And then another comment I have, the canopy or the awning on that entranceway. Was there any thought put into having it a little bit bigger? So if someone was dropping off someone in a wheelchair or getting, kids out of car seats, dropping off, that they would be covered.
Like if I may,
Like a portico
chair.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like a porte cochere.
Yeah.
I appreciate the comment. At this stage, we have not considered that as a design parameter for this project. But
Okay.
certainly, and the one thing that can be challenging with porte cocheres is the height restrictions or the height requirements of it. If you're gonna have the services that would be required, if there's a handy dart or if there's a bus that needs to come in, that can be
Right,
challenging.
okay.
As opposed to, if they were to just drop off right up front of the canopy and it's just a quick little exit into a covered area.
Okay.
Just something, all those things kind of come into consideration.
And but is there a drop-off area, whether it's, forget about it being covered, but is there a drop-off area over there that says loading zone?
Yeah, we
So-
do have a loading zone here for the main bus, but
Yeah, I would anticipate through the chair, sorry to Lisa, I would anticipate that if there was an individual being dropped off with the See the Sky Better Homes program or for Handy Dart or whatever the case may be, family, friends, they would just pull out right up front. I don't anticipate there being that much traffic in this parking lot, even though there is 63 residents and some, of course, the commercial space, but a drop off of that nature for a few minutes, whether it be 1 or 2, is not that significant in our opinion.
Okay. All right. And there's parking for e-parking, electric vehicles, or in any of those parking spots?
not at this time. I don't think there's a, correct me if
It's
I'm
not a
wrong.
requirement of the Village of Pemberton?
Yeah, I don't think so at this time.
No, through the chair to Lisa, it is not a requirement at this time, but certainly something that we, as a consideration.
Mhm.
Through the chair, if I may, from the building department, our building bylaw regulates that a building is EV ready. So
Yeah.
the electrical is constructed to facilitate charging units if they need to be installed.
Correct.
I don't know if that would apply to this building because it's bigger in scale, but if you're building under Part 9, it would.
Good question for the chair. How many of those parking spots are visitor parking spots?
Through the chair to Colin, we are proposing, sorry, I believe it's 4 visitor stalls. I just want to double check that to make sure.
Yeah, 4 comes to mind as well. I had that stat somewhere.
There are 4 residential visitor stalls being proposed.
Yeah, on the right side of the parking lot.
And to the chair, back to Colin, just to elaborate on that a little bit further. 4 proposed stalls for visitors. And it should be noted that the parking relaxation that we are seeking here, again, is coming in keeping with a third-party engineer that developed. They're actually recommending slightly less parking than we are proposing. They recommended 41 stalls for the residential component, and we are proposing 51. We are not seeking any relaxation on the commercial component. That is in keeping with the Village of Pemberton's parking bylaw. And the rationale behind that, of course, and we can get into it further, is it looks at the tenure, of course, given the lower income individuals that will be living here. As quickly mentioned earlier, this project is being funded by BC Housing and the Community Housing Fund, and 20% of the residents will be individuals who are on income assistance or seniors with fixed incomes. So these are individuals who are really paying shelter rate rents, $375 a month or $570 for a 2-bedroom. Often these individuals do not have cars. They simply cannot afford cars. And that has been factored into the parking engineer's rationale. So he looked at the income levels of this program that is mandated by BC Housing. And he looked at the type of car ownership and tenure, again, affordable market rental, and is suggesting based on their data analysis, a parking rate. And we are actually providing slightly more parking than what was suggested in their report.
So they're to the chair. So they're not suggesting like they aren't considered any off-site parking in case there's a requirement for overflow or he's, you know, the report isn't correct.
Through the chair to Colin, no, they are anticipating that the use required for this site would all be contained within the proposed parking on site. And the rationale there is they felt that through their analysis that the Village of Pemberton parking bylaw would result in an oversupply of parking stalls. It would be underutilized. There'd be a whole host of parking that would not be utilized by the residents.
Question for you. What kind of access to the building do you have for strollers and bikes?
Through the chair to Natalie, if I may, Chelsea. So as you can appreciate, the entire chair project would be accessible. So that would be for individuals in wheelchairs or mothers or fathers with strollers. So it all be level. There'd be slightly little ramps there, as you could see. And then you can see there is a designated bicycle storage room that would be accessed directly from the outside of the building.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Natalie. Go ahead.
If you were bringing a stroller and you want to take it into your building apartment, right? So would you have to carry it upstairs?
No, it would all be ramped accordingly, again, for individuals with mobility challenges, whether that be an individual in a wheelchair or a mother or a father with pushing a stroller. It's all level, it's all provided in keeping with the accessibility requirements under the BC Building Code. So you would come in through the vestibule, Natalie, into the elevator and then down to your suite.
Okay,
no
perfect.
stairs required.
Or into the amenity space if they're just.
Or into the amenity space.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, just to piggyback on that too, there is sidewalk access from Harrow Road. That's the intention, is for this to be a quick on and quick off as well. So they don't have to go necessarily on a bike all the way around.
And if I may, through the chair, the question came up about snow clearing, Chelsea and team. You can see those hashed areas there on site on the parking. Those are actually areas that the team has identified for snow clearing.
Yeah, and over here.
Yeah.
And I think in like extraordinary circumstances, because we all can appreciate that that's happening, I'm sure that they can easily plow it over here too, if there was a situation happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chair has a question. So I'm just wondering what's the rationale behind is that a requirement to have double ways aisle in the parking lot? Because I see that they are 8 meter wide, which is pretty wide. So there might be a potential to reduce them to a single lane, kind of being a one way. Then we could include more amenity, green space amenity. We could even include more parking space at the same time. So is that a requirement? I know sometimes fire departments have this type of requirement for their trucks. So I'm wondering if there's a potential to kind of have a one-way kind of loop that would liberate a lot of space for other design amenities per se.
Mm-hmm. So yes and no. There's no requirement for it to be a one-way or a two-way. There are the fire truck requirements, as you noted, which we are showing we're just utilizing this part. So this part does have that requirement. I think it's only 6 meters for a fire truck.
Oh yeah, sorry, 6 meters. Yeah.
Yeah, which is quite narrow actually, for a parking lot. It's
I thought it was 8 on my screen.
Yeah.
My bad.
It's okay. But I think you do have a really great point. Like we could on this side, but it would just be ease of use for anyone using, like accessing the space, and reduced confusion too. If it was a one-way, there you might have people going back this way by accident. So if you just make it two-way, it tends to, reduce confusion too.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm just seeing a potential because right now I know that the building itself is going to impact the neighborhood, but I think it's very necessary that we have this building built in Pemberton. But I do see the parking as a big East Island problematic, especially right now at 30 degrees that we have in the summer. It's pretty warm. So my comments would be only to like improve the green amenities on the parking. And yeah, that's about it. But we can discuss that at the recommendation point anyway, so.
Is the, to the chair, is this building being designed with air conditioning for the tenants?
Likely, yeah. The step 4 requirement is quite stringent. It's going to be a very nice building inside for airtightness and the thermal comfort too. Yeah,
No, I'm sorry, I mean mechanical cooling. Will mechanical cooling be involved?
There's
Yeah,
AC.
so
Yeah,
through the chair, to Colin, BC Housing actually requires now, given that the heat that we've seen over the last couple of years, BC Housing requires that all of their projects include for cooling, mechanical cooling for the suites, for the residents. All residents of BC Housing projects are considered to be vulnerable residents, vulnerable population. And yes, so we have been, every single one of our projects that we're just not there yet designing what system we're going to use, but it will have cooling for sure.
yeah. I can't name the last project I did without it.
Any other questions? No.
Okay, I don't believe there's any members of the public in attendance, but through the chair, if I may, this would be an opportunity. If there are any members of the public in attendance that wish to ask questions regarding the application, please use the raise hand feature. I'll just give a minute to see if anyone raises their hand. Okay, no questions. So we will demote the applicants back to viewers. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, someone removed Colin from the panelist.
Oh,
That's my bad.
Wait, Kate, Colin, and you kept.
Sorry, Colin, I didn't mean to demote you. I'll just bring up the draft resolution, and the best practice is if you guys wish, I can type on your behalf.
On behalf of the chair, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, I'd appreciate that, yeah.
Okay. Mark, do you want to ask the handy question?
Pardon?
Do you want to ask that question about whether or not they would support?
Yeah, so whether or not you would support, so that the Advisory Design Review Commission recommends that council support proposed development permit application DP 93 SSCS affordable housing, subject to the following recommendations. Again, that's a draft. It's your choice to put as you will.
Are we going to take a vote, or I would say I'm in support of that proposed development.
I'm in support as well.
I'm in support.
I'm in support as well.
Perfect. And Lisa?
Yeah, but I think we have a couple of recommendations, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, with the following recommendations.
Yep. Would you like to start, Lisa?
Well, the one I mentioned regarding the patio screening, that's my pet peeve, so I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but I don't like balconies that you can see everyone's snow
I would
tires
agree
and
with you.
bikes and.
I would agree with you. I really like the fact they put some kind of glazed window on the Orion building, for example. I think it added a lot of privacy to people, so I would support that recommendation as well. I don't know for other members of the commission.
Yeah, I support that as well. You don't want to see everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
The best practice is if you, through the chair, wording is provided, whether it's the chair reading the statement and then type it, just because I can't.
Okay, so I can
Yeah.
make a statement. Okay, perfect. So consideration for glazing on the balcony glass be implemented, let's say.
And we can finesse the spelling errors or anything after the fact.
Perfect, great. I would kind of duplicate the recommendation that the Land Use Commission made yesterday about the green amenities and more trees in the parking lot with better stormwater management amenities, because I believe the way the parking lot is laid out right now, it's just going to be terrible in the summer, super warm. So I would just say consideration for improve green stormwater management amenities and green spaces, or like better tree coverage, tree canopy, let's say.
That just parking or.
Yeah, I think trees in the parking lot for shade.
Yeah.
Did I capture that correctly, or?
Yeah, consideration for improved stormwater management and green spaces within the parking. Yeah, I believe that makes sense.
Through the chair, did we want to address the e-vehicle parking, or will that be dealt with the village?
I believe it's within the scope of the Land Use Commission, but I kind of agree with you that it was kind of missing of the proposal. So we could say it's 25% of EV charging infrastructure be implemented on the parking space, on the parking lot, basically.
Well, I don't know about 25%, but just
It's
whatever the village standard is, just make sure it's kind of.
I don't think there is right now a standard, but I believe 25% is kind of the good practice ratio that we use normally when we build a new development. That's what we're trying to implement in Whistler. So I would kind of piggyback on that.
Can you read a say statement?
Yeah, could be provide the EV chargers for at least 25% of the resident parking space.
Or should it just be roughed in?
Yeah, just
for future use, because they might find they don't need them, but if it's roughed in, they can put them in.
By roughed in, you mean EV ready? So
EV ready.
Yeah, she already said that's going to be EV ready. So I would maybe push it a bit further. So like thinking about the Orion building that has like fully installed charger. So the parking space with the EV chargers are always used by electric vehicles. So I believe could be interesting to have fully installed one then.
I'm just thinking that 25% is a lot
It is a
for
lot.
this type of building, because
We-
those vehicles are, $50,000 vehicles, so how many
We
are there
can, we
gonna
could remove,
be?
we could remove the prescriptive target and
Yeah,
just,
I think that,
so then they
Yeah.
could open the door to them to
Yeah.
just
yeah,
consideration. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, 25% would be 20 parking stalls. EV, that seems like pretty excessive. I'd say
I
like
think that's a lot.
That would
Three
be,
slots.
yeah, that would be maybe a lot, yeah. So we could take consideration that EV charger be provided within the required parking space. I would just add be provided after EV charger.
Got it, yeah.
And I had another suggestion, perhaps it's a bit far stretch, but I really like the idea of connecting the parcel to the rest of the neighborhood. So I think it would be interesting and kind of important that we make this recommendation that they provide a better and improved permeability of the site. So a better circulation for active transportation. So would kind of like give this recommendation to council that they need to consider the link to the trail so that it will not be forgotten through the course of development. So consideration for improve access to the active transportation network, the existing active transportation network, I would say. Great. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think they've really missed on their snow clearing, like the little patches they were showing there, just doesn't seem like a massive parking lot is gonna fill those spots up with one small dump. I really think they need to consider it. On the west side there, they have that fence and they have that massive part of their property. Makes sense that fence could be removable and they have that whole section of land to dump snow in. Because what they have for it right now, it's not gonna do.
It's not going to at all.
No, I agree.
You need to be able to access it too. Like if you're
Yeah.
clearing it and everyone's parked in the parking lot.
Oh yeah, it's just, that's not gonna work.
Yeah. So there needs to be some sort of connection to that area.
Yeah, I think they had like a fence on the west side there.
Yeah.
Be nice if it was removable, so in the winter, so they could just shove all the snow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Agree.
So we could say consideration for a better or improved designated area for snow storage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the left side of the parking lot's the only area.
Yeah, I kind of agree on the western part where for snow storage on the western part of the parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Does anyone have another suggestion, other concerns?
I know when they were talking about the bike path, they didn't seem to be 100% sure that that was going to happen. So maybe make the bike path connection sort of requirement for the project to move forward.
Yeah, could you repeat, Colin? I'm trying to think about a recommendation, like we could.
Sorry, so they were, you know, when they were talking, it seemed like they were trying to work out a way to connect the bike path to the community bike path. And so it didn't seem like they had that all figured out. And so to figure that out in order for this project to go forward, that they would have a bike path connection to the site.
Oh, I believe maybe the consideration for improved connection to the existing active transportation network kind of covers that, but
Yeah.
Okay.
maybe
Alright.
we can.
I don't know, I feel like you need to be specific on that one because it might get overlooked.
Yeah, I feel like the bike
an
path is
example.
probably not in there.
Yeah, it's important to be able to access this parking lot from the west, like the Earn Trail. Because everybody that's gonna live there going to town doesn't want to go onto Harrow and walk all the way around.
Yeah, we could add to the existing active transportation network. Yeah, specifically to the Arn Canal Trail or the Arn. I don't remember what it's called.
You also have to consider that people will want to cross over and go north of here. So, you know, they will want to come out Harrow and go onto the onto that path by the highway, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So to be able to cross over and go north. So
Again, circulation.
I'm sorry.
I was just clarifying something. with
Okay.
Mark.
Yeah. So to the Arm Canal Trail and the one that runs along here, the highway there.
The Friendship Trail.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's the name. Yeah.
Through the chair, under the DP guidelines, you're putting all this active transportation under like the parking and circulation category.
Yep. Yeah, I would put that in circulation and parking. Yeah.
Are there any further recommendations or?
Perfect. Then I have to read the recommendation before asking for support, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the chair is going to ask that the Advisory Design Review Commission recommend that council support proposed development permit application DP number 93, Sea to Sky Community Services Affordable Housing, subject to the following recommendation: that consideration for glazing on the balcony glass be implemented, that consideration for improved stormwater management and green spaces within the parking lot. I would add be implemented maybe there too. Okay. Consideration that EV chargers be provided within the required parking lot. Consideration for improved connection to the existing active transportation network, specifically connection to the Arn Canal Trail and the Friendship Trail. And then consideration for improved designated area for snow storage on the western side of the parcel. All in favor? I'm asking for a motion seconder, sorry, first.
No motion.
Perfect. And all in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm just going to promote our other staff member who is going to present on the next application. Can you do that while I?
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, Scott.
Hello. All right. Yeah, apologies to the committee. I I don't always get COVID, but when I do, it seems to be on a day I'm supposed to give a presentation. So I've gotten something, and I'm calling in from home here just to give this presentation. I think it makes sense. I'm probably the person that knows the most about it at this point. So. Okay. Are you okay to run this the slideshow, Nikki?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, I'm just gonna rearrange some stuff on my end. All right. Yeah, welcome to the Advisory Design Review Committee meeting, and this is a presentation of Major Development Permit number 88, which is a project called the Pemberton Gateway Live Share Co-Living application. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an introduction of the proposed development and receive recommendations for to council from the Advisory Design Review Commission. So here's a quick overview of the typical process for a major development permit. So normally we would accept a complete submission, complete the internal review, staff review, move on to this step, the Advisory Planning Commission, and then proceed with the council decision. If you just go to the next slide, Nikki, you'll see this application has not followed the typical process. So this gives you a little bit of an overview of what's actually happened here. Because of the uniqueness of this application, the applicant really just wanted to get in front of committee of the whole as quickly as possible to sort of suss out whether this project had any support in the community at all. So for that reason, they haven't completed you'll notice some gaps with this application. For example, we don't have the latest landscaping plan for you tonight, but the applicant is working on that. So for your information, I'll just finish on that slide, Nikki, sorry. But yeah, the parking discussion is about a significant parking variance that has gone to committee of the whole twice now. So hence the recurring arrow there. And so that will be a council decision. I will go into some detail here about the parking variance later, but that's a council decision that they've already been briefed on pretty significantly. All right, so a quick overview of the site. This is located next to 1 Mile Eating House and the Orion building. It's that vacant lot in between the two. So civic address is 7340 Crabapple Court. It was initially envisioned to be part of the Gateway project. So initially that developer owned both parcels of land and wanted to develop 2 buildings side by side, which explains why the grand plan to connect the 2 parkades existed. But that developer did not complete the second portion of the project. The zoning is C3 and the OCP designation is Portage Road. And this falls into DP area number 6 for multifamily/commercial. Next slide, please. So here's a quick overview of the existing site condition. Some older photos of Pemberton, but some good ones. Just gives you a sense of what the current site layout is. Next slide, please. So here's a quick overview of the proposal for you. The applicant will go into some more detail next. It's a 3-story building. And so what's unique about this proposal is they're proposing 64 micro suites, we've called them, which are 300 square feet in size. They'll be rented for about $900 a month is the current proposed rate. And, very suitable for someone, in their 20s, say, or, sort of just feeling out the community, looking to take care of some work in town, that type of thing. So I tried to include a blow up of the floor plan so you can kind of see each unit does have a small kitchenette, sleeping quarters, and washroom facilities. And then that communal space in the orange has more significant cooking facilities, as well as amenity space and other features for the common for everyone to use. So this project will be secured with a housing agreement, which will prohibit strata titling for a period of time. So, and that is basically if this building were ever to be, if there was ever interest in strata titling this building, it would be a decision of council to whether that would happen or not. The proposal has 41 parking stalls, and the architectural style we're calling modern contemporary. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of major development permit, or sorry, of DP area number 6 for multifamily commercial. The 2 objectives listed there in the OCP are create livable, attractive neighborhoods and provide visual and physical cohesiveness with that reflect our small town character. Next slide, please. So a quick policy review of this proposal does show that it is compliant with the zoning bylaw. There is going to be a small variance for the building, the front setback, nothing substantial there, 20 centimeters, typical. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, I'll just go back there. One other detail where we don't have at this time is the final maximum building height proposed. So that's something we'll be getting from the applicant soon as well. Next slide, please. Yes, perfect. So I'll go into the discussion of the parking variance briefly here. This site, because of that history where it was going to be developed by the same developer as the Gateway, when it was owned by one person, he gave himself rights to provide 14 parking stalls on this site to benefit to meet his obligations on the other building. So there is a covenant on this land that requires it to provide 14 parking stalls in support of the neighboring commercial. So the applicant is proposing to use a surface parking lot that would serve the commercial during the day and then switch to be servicing residents overnight. The underground parking is to be accessed through the Gateway Parkade, as we discussed already. And then the applicant is trying to come up with some innovative ways to offset their parking needs. Again, these are going to be small units that are not going to be targeting families or people we typically think about who own vehicles. So they're proposing a few ideas here that they would deliver as part of this project to offset the residents' need of cars. So one is a shared bicycle fleet of 10 bicycles owned and managed by the property owner. And they also have 38 bike stalls underground. And they also are proposing a car share program of using 4 7-8 passenger all-wheel drive vehicles. And so they have this proposing to sort of have an app that would provide a community feel for the residents and would allow people to book these vehicles or carpool potentially. Yeah, that's good for now. Yeah, and then just to sum it up here, this is the last slide before the resolution. I just wanted to try to put this building in context. I feel like this is the best rendering for that. You can kind of see it next to the existing Gateway building, which does have a lot more interesting architectural features. That's kind of the anchor of this neighborhood. This building is a little bit more muted, more simple color palette, but there's some interesting use of proposed plant climbing up the walls that could be an interesting feature as well. Yeah, so that's all I have for you guys today. And then here's a draft resolution you can feel free to work on when the time comes. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Perfect. Anyone would like to start? Me, I have a lot of questions about this project, which I think is totally inappropriate for Pemberton, but I'll let go other people first.
So I have a question for the chair. So I haven't been a part of the parking discussions before. Maybe that can be sort of provided in more detail because it just doesn't seem reasonable, the development. So what discussions have happened and what's been the consensus so far? Yeah,
through the chair, apologies for that. When I referenced the committee, I meant the committee of the whole, which is made up of the village's councillors. So okay. It will be a council decision to weigh in on this to decide ultimately whether to grant this parking variance or not. And so they have already, taken a presentation on it 2 times now and have sent it back to essentially have the applicant propose some more, correct some rough edges, propose some more ideas. And even of the last committee of the whole meeting, they sent the applicant back requesting a little bit more work be done. So the applicant may be able to update us on that work when they speak here.
Brian?
Is the applicant speaking or is this it? We're just discussing this.
Actually, Nikki, if you can confirm.
Yeah, they're speaking right now. It's just question for staff and then they will do a presentation.
Okay, because I do think parking is a huge issue here. And that whole shared parking with the commercial spaces during the day, tenants at night, I mean, who's controlling that kind of thing?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit if you'd like.
Sure.
Through the chair, yeah, the applicant is proposing, like, because of the structure of this building and the proposed kind of style of, you know, purpose-built rental, small suites with communal area, the applicant is proposing to have a full-time staff member on site 24/7, who would manage these, you know, the potential conflicts with parking, and I'm assuming with other, you know, aspects of the communal aspects of the building. Yeah, and the
Through
other
the
thing,
chair, can I ask a question? The 41 parking stalls minus the 4 for the car share is 37 spots. And then are the 14 spots for Gateway 1 coming off of that, or are they already off of that?
No, it comes off.
yeah, the 41 spots are included in, sorry, the 14 spots are included in the 41 spots.
Okay, so we need to subtract another 14 spots from the 37.
Through the chair, it depends on how, you know, with the management of the parking as proposed, if that is a successful model, those 14 spots would support commercial uses during the day and then serve residents outside of business hours.
But for argument's sake, those 14 spots are committed to Gateway 1. So we don't know if they're going to make arrangements for the evening yet. So at this point, they're committed 24 hours a day to Gateway 1.
Yeah, through the chair, I see where you're going with that. And
yes,
the way the covenant language, I would have to look at the covenant language to know exactly what it is, but it wouldn't go so far as to say these 14 parking stalls must be dedicated to commercial uses 24/7. It's much more general. So in theory, it could be made to work. It's important to note at this point as well that the owner of Gateway, the commercial units there, is a party, or pardon me, I'm misspeaking. I was thinking of an easement agreement. So that won't apply in this case. So.
Question for the chair. So this full-time staff that would be on board, I mean, and how would they propose to manage this day to night? Would they, like, is there any description of how they would manage this rather than saying they would manage it?
Yeah, through the chair, we don't have a lot of information on the exact, you know, how that would look at this point. But other than to say that there would be a full-time person tasked with keeping this building functioning properly as intended.
okay, so through the chair, so and correct me if I'm wrong, looking at 23 parking stalls for 64 studio suites at this stage. And potential for some nighttime use of 14 spots.
Through the chair, yeah, I mean, that is one way to interpret the parking count, depending on how those 14 stalls are managed.
Bring them in.
No more question? Perfect. I got some, but for the applicant, so let's move forward.
Okay, I will be promoting Jake and Scott.
Hello, everybody. Thank you to the chair. Scott's there. Great.
Could I get Ferruzzi promoted as well? Ferruzzi,
Yes.
please.
Perfect. So Scott, I have COVID as well, so I don't know where you and I were, but I thought COVID was over. So I'm here.
That's okay. I have dirt all over.
Scott
myself from
McRae
digging
has
in.
it. Yeah. Anyways, no, thanks so much. I'm going to hand this over quite quickly to the architect team, but and I just want to thank Scott McRae for that presentation and for all the work to date. We understand that we are asking for a parking relaxation. That's kind of the big item. We also understand that this is an innovative form of housing, and there are strong opinions about that in a place like Pemberton. David and I are have owned property in the Sea to Sky corridor. A Squamish resident. I'm originally from Roslyn, BC, and my sister-in-law lives around the corner from this site. So I'm not a Pemberton resident, but I do love the city and go up there all the time. What we're actually trying to do here is provide this as a rental building with micro suites, as Scott mentioned, but it's actually a co-living building. And so the form of housing that we're doing here is about bringing real affordability. Like we're talking about, getting some real affordability in the market. We're also offering a couple other things I want to mention. We want to offer these to Pemberton residents first. We've already talked to council about having a period of time to rent this out to local residents first. We see that potentially kind of going to the younger demographic maybe, but I don't want to be ageist. It can be for anybody, but it's really also this form of housing as co-living is about getting your own private space, but having large amenity areas to create social bonds, create friendships. And it's part of the housing continuum that frankly is missing. People often, will step out and then looking for those transition years where they're maybe on their own for the first time, or in some locations, a new community or whatever. And a few other things just before I get Scott to talk to you more about the design. You heard from Scott with some of the mitigation things we want to do. We also are trying to make this geared towards some of the more active users. We feel strongly, and we've got a couple other things we're promising to do. We're going to de-link parking from a number of units. 10 right now is what we've agreed to, and we're going to have them to give a statutory declaration of the Village of Pemberton that they don't have parking. We're happy to do that. We really think our user here, a lot of them won't have cars, and I know that sounds crazy in a place like Pemberton, but we feel strongly in that just because of the demographics and who we're looking for. We do have the shared cars that we talked about. And we're actually creating a mobile app. So this is a really curated living experience. You can actually book individual seats in those cars, and there'll be four. And we're actually creating a co-op. So this will be the car share co-op for the building. We're gonna have 8 4-wheel drive passenger vans, big tulies on top. We've got a big, in the amenity room, we've got a big bike and gear workshop area. We've got lots of space in the garage we're making for bikes and for all types of sports equipment. So we really are trying to gear towards that active lifestyle. I heard a couple of questions around the full-time manager. This is like a community. And so we will have a full-time community manager. We will have a number of policies with the city and a housing agreement that guides a couple of things, but our full-time resident community leader is going to manage a number of these things, such as the car share, parking and whatnot. And we will have a management plan in place to make sure that, that the neighborhood and all of these items are managed correctly. To also be the person that, if unfortunately there is an issue or someone has in the community will call City Hall, it should go straight to our resident advisor. So it is sort of a really unique form of housing. We're really excited about it. I know when we talk about, doing innovation in housing is not easy because we are looking at things that are a bit different, but we're really excited about it. We love the site and love the community. So maybe I'll hand it over to Scott to talk a little more specifically about the architecture, but I just wanted to fill in a few items there.
Okay, I'll get Firuze to put up some slides for you. We had actually prepared something a little bit similar to what you've already seen, so we'll skip through it pretty quickly, try to hit the high points. Yes, so can you go full screen there, Firuze?
Yes. Is it okay?
That's it. There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. Let's just go to the next slide. So again, this is a co-living facility, which is different from standard housing, and I think Jake's addressed that. Corners, this is our first co-living that we've designed, but we have done 2 co-housing facilities, and to me, they're the most rewarding residential projects we've ever done because they do really center themselves around community. And we've tried to think about that fairly clearly in bringing some of those principles to this building. So when one enters this building, we've kind of identified in this sort of ready colored portion of the building with a big outdoor canopy, that this is really the place where we're expecting the social life of the building to occur. And when you enter the building through the main entry, you enter through that space. The idea is that you will engage with other residents on a daily basis as you pass through that space. And it's all about trying to create community, trying to create relationships between people that may not be lifelong, but certainly can be very strong while you're living in the facility. Maybe this next slide, Fruzi. Right, so these are the context shots. Again, I think you've seen some of them already, across from the gas station, beside the Mile One restaurant facility, and Orion being a fairly new building that's been built right next door. Maybe the next slide. And so in working, maybe one back, Fruzi. In working this project, we were trying to work with the idea of an aesthetic that really reflected a bit Orion and these other two new buildings that have gone up recently in the Crabapple Court, and we just like that aesthetic. They are both passive house buildings. Our firm has done many passive house buildings, multifamilies. We have 4 certified, 4 under construction. We managed to hit air tightness test on one of them in Vancouver, 0.42 last week. So we're quite aware of highly energy efficient buildings, whether it's step 4 or passive house. Passive house has been our kind of specialty and something we know for, and we're going to talk about that in this building for sure. And Rod Nadeau did these other 2 buildings. We've talked extensively with him on his strategies in these buildings. It's a 3-story building, so it's not really a terribly dominating building. Oh, that's fine. You can carry on. Where are we now? There we are. So the idea, again, we've talked about is creating a community and promoting healthy lifestyle, promoting the use of bikes. Certainly, I ride an electric bike to work pretty much every day. And our office is quite, into that type of a thing. And we think it's a great way to go. And we think Pemberton is an ideal spot for it, given that you have some winter months. It's a little tougher, obviously, than in Vancouver. We like to work with green buildings. Certainly the most economical way to build a green building is to keep them as compact as possible, keep a very simple form. We've kind of certainly done that with this building. We will have a high performance building envelope. We will have a high performance ventilation system. We've been working quite a bit with central systems lately, particularly in a rental building. We're debating that on this one. We may do individual. We haven't decided that yet. It'll be an all electric building. We don't use gas. The only time we seem to use gas is in the odd bit of commercial for the restaurant business. We haven't got them over the line to induction cooking yet. We're contemplating using this as a modular unit design. We think there's some efficiencies in that in terms of reduction of construction waste and reduction of materials and basic maybe some better quality stuff. And certainly we've seen some good green buildings going up that are modular. It may or may not be modular. That decision hasn't been made yet, but we've planned it so it could be. And next slide. All right, so most of the parking of the building is entered through the building next door. There are right-of-ways that promote that, and it kind of fixes pretty much where our entries and where our parking is. There is this surface parking lot we've talked about, which is intended to support the commercial. None of this parking is going to be reserved. It's not like a strata where you have your stall and you always park in the same stall. That wouldn't be the case in this case. All the parking is be first come, first served. And as Jake has alluded to, they were proposing to have 10 residents sign a covenant that they don't even own a car. And that helps get this parking into the right numbers, assuming the car shares is part of it. Fruzi, maybe the next slide, front entry. Yeah, I guess that's fine. So there's the parking level as it's currently configured. And we may expand it a little bit. We'll see, depending on how many toys we want to try to put down there. Next one. So this is sort of a typical unit that we're thinking about. It's a very compact unit. It's really designed for people to live alone, singly in the unit. I don't think there'll be couples in a unit, but it's possible. But what is key is a fairly large common area with common communal cooking facilities, communal laundry facilities, some lounges, meeting areas, trying to really have a place that people share a lot of things and maintain their bikes and all those kinds of activities. We've also put quite large outside canopies on it. We do think that there'd be a lot of outdoor living in a place like this, and I like to keep the snow off the furniture or the rain off the furniture so that it is usable all year long. We do have a couple of small lounges at the far end of the building, just for those maybe 2 or 3 people just getting together here and there. Maybe the next one, Fruze. That would be the typical floor, 2 floors like that, and with that bit of a common area on the end. So I think we've talked about the simplicity. We're trying to get some shading on this side. We're still got to work. Overheating is a big deal, and in Pemberton, it's going to be a big deal. Heat domes, it's a big deal. So whether we do some shading with fixed shading or whether we have done some operable shading on a couple of our buildings recently. But the idea in this one was we thought we would try to combine sort of an architectural element, which is these cable like trellises to try to, and these shading devices to grow some greenery on the building and to use that as a natural way of shading the building. And then maybe even have the benefit of a little more solar gain in the winter months. Next one, here we are. The finishes are pretty straightforward, probably a hardy shingle and some other color patterns, mostly in the cementitious siding, like a hardy type product. Next slide. You can see that kind of red expanded area at the base, that brick red that we're really trying to play up as this nice common facility for the project. Anyway, thank you. Now we have talked a little bit about the parking. I think one of the key pieces here is that the parking, it's not reserved parking, it is managed parking. There's certainly a lot of, these are studio units, and there's certainly a lot of parking studies that show in studio units, and again, there tend to be more related to urban situations, which this is not quite the same, but they show, car ownership is less than a half a car per unit, typically in that situation. And Pemberton's bylaw is 1 per unit. So 1 is too high, maybe 0.5 is too low, but somewhere in the middle is probably the right answer here. And we think with this model, the ability to share some parking, certainly when I've been in this parking lot next door, you could shoot a cannon in it a few times I've been in it, but maybe I haven't been there at peak season. But I think there is the possibility that this shared use could work quite well, as long as it's managed and as long as the residents don't own too many cars, but that's trying to be facilitated by this car share model and bike model and other ways of promoting a lifestyle that isn't reliant on a car.
And Scott, I would just add, we did submit to the city. We did hire Bunt traffic engineers, and they did complete a traffic study for this building and did support our traffic management plan and the reduction of traffic given conditions in the area.
Okay, thanks, Jake. I think that's it for.
Yeah, I think that's it from
I'm
us.
happy to take some questions.
Perfect. Anyone interested in starting with some question from the commission members? I can start. I was wondering, what's the rationale behind this housing typology? Because is there a demand? Is there statistics that kind of back up this type of micro unit? because I don't see it as a very viable housing typology for Pemberton. I see it more as a campus, university campus style of typology, or even Whistler for temporary workforce. So I'm just wondering, because I've worked in the private, and this seems to me like just a way to cramp more units and some more revenue for the building. So just maybe reviewing the number of units would kind of like ruled out the problem of parking, and you could meet your parking minimum like better. I don't know.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So co-living is one of the biggest growing areas in real estate development. It's, co-housing and co-living has been around for a long time. They're there are a lot of definitions inside of those two, everything from hippie communes on the co-housing side to, co-living buildings that have been around for a while. But where they actually are most feasible are in two locations: urban cores and resort type settings. So that means where there's lots of, sort of outdoor activities and places that people want to be. So British Columbia is a great location for this. In Europe, these are happening in all the major cities because Europe's way ahead of Canada on this, like way ahead. Like everybody if I showed this in Europe, everybody would know what it is. And so, it's very feasible in this area. To your question about the units, this isn't rental. So the issue that we have is this type of building is very inefficient because we're providing a huge amount of amenities comparative to a typical building. The other element that's a lot more expensive is things like it's very curated. So we have a full-time resident manager. We have those cars that we're talking about. So our OPEX, like our operating budget, is about double a typical building. You also want to have a critical mass because this isn't like the whole point of this. This is not little micro suites where people go and they disappear into their units. Another aspect to co-living on a business model, why it's very successful, is it's about community. So one of the things in density, and I'm a developer with lots of years experience, is we end up packing people into buildings where they're just isolation tubes. You go to your condo, you go down to the lobby, you leave. That's not what this model is. This model is very different. And student housing has some similarities. This is not student housing. It's even different, or more different than that. But it's about coming into a community. So you've got huge amount of amenities. You've got your own private space, which is relatively small, but it's about going down to these amenities. And if you look at our amenity area, we've got down there's a centralized laundry and there's co-working spaces, and there's a huge kitchens and there's a games area, there's a social lounge, and there's a big large patio that we're going to program. It's about bringing people together so that you suddenly have a community. Because we also, one of the things we're not talking about, because we're so fixated on affordability in this province, we have a loneliness epidemic. We struggle to bring community and people together. So that's another element of this model. So, and I realize the parking issues is kind of the big thing here, but I think the mayor said it in our meeting. Like, if we don't start doing developments like this that are different and innovative and sort of force people out of their cars, what are we doing? Like, we gotta start creating things like this to get people to live differently.
I have a question for the chair. So, I applaud you on, an innovative way to do housing. But frankly, I see this as a living for people who are working in Whistler. I mean, that's how I see it. And so I would expect that these people would be commuting back and forth to Whistler. And we've just experienced a significantly long transit strike. So, if somebody lived here, worked in Whistler, they would need a vehicle. And to be honest, I applaud the innovation, but there's already a parking problem that exists on site. And every time I'm at home, I see it and I experience it. And I feel this project is only going to make it worse. So, I would happily support this project if you could solve the parking issue. And until you do, how can you solve the parking issue so you can provide one parking spot per issue is my comment. Like, why can't you do that?
Well, first, I think, and maybe I'll let David also speak up, but I heard you say the parking issue on site. This is a private development site with development rights on it. I just want to mention that's not a parking lot. we've been allowing, it's been available for parking to the community, but it isn't a parking lot. So there's no loss of parking on this site. So I just want to make that clear because we could be shut off tomorrow for parking. And a lot of construction guys have been using it. 1 per isn't realistic to what our user type is, and they're just not going to have those cars, and it's prohibitive cost wise, and there's also some geotechnical issues. So if we want to go to 1, we'll build a condo building here. Like there's not going to be a parking lot here. There's some rights to do that. This is about trying to bring some, again, that affordability. It's about helping young people. We've offered to make this for Pemberton residents first. And sort of, kind of go that route. I understand the concern that it's a bedroom community for Whistler. We don't want that either. That's not kind of conducive to our model. People that just show up and live in Whistler and aren't here. It's not the kind of tenant we want. It's not why we build this building. If we wanted to do that, I would just do a pod hotel, or I would just try and make this 100% micro suites and not have a resident manager. None of that's useful. So, we're trying to get in front of that issue, and I don't see it, but I've heard that from a couple of people.
Through the chair.
Yep.
I have a couple of comments. I won't kind of beat the parking drum too much. We all know that's an issue. But just a couple questions and comments. So I don't love the entrance. Well, first of all, I want to love this building, and I don't yet. I want to like this project. I think it's necessary, and I have kids in their 20s that would love to live here. But a couple of things that I kind of question is the location of the entrance facing on to the main street there. To me, that just doesn't seem like the natural way. Like, you can't pull up in front and drop someone off there. If there's a bus stop and it's an intersection and it's there's lots of cars there. So I find the entrance to be kind of in the wrong spot. I don't know why, but I feel it should, and maybe it can't go elsewhere. Also the demographic, is there any other storage in the building? Is there, have you thought about a ski room? Where's everyone putting their skis? Because are they traipsing them up 3 sets of stairs and putting in their micro suite and banging up the walls along the way? I know there's bike storage, which is great, but all these young people here to experience the outdoors are going to have other kinds of equipment as well. And I'm assuming they're going to be furnished units. I guess that doesn't really concern this forum, but and then is there any consideration to the maximum number of occupants in the building? So yeah, you're geared towards singles, but what if everyone's a couple of 20-year-olds shacking up, and all of a sudden you've got 120 people in there? Are you going to be screening that process as the landlords? Probably, so that you can kind of cap the number. And then also, what's to prevent, and I guess it's at the landlord's discretion, is this going to be someone's ski cabin? Someone from Vancouver saying like, oh, I'm going to rent somewhere for $900 a month and come up on the weekends and ski. So that there needs to be something in place to prevent that. And I know you said you're going to offer it to locals first. And yeah, and I guess the amenities are all on that first level, great. But if you live on the second or third floor, you've got no elevator, it's a long way to your amenities. It's a great dorm. Yeah, I want to like it. Those are my comments.
I can answer some of those if you like.
Sure.
Yeah, for the ski and all of the equipment, it's not just skis. Like, we've got obviously the bike rooms. We've got an equipment room on the main level, which we're gonna, rubberize with the Microtech flooring and stuff like that, and have it as a full equipment room. We also are, and we're just not there in the planning yet, but we're absolutely in the parkade wherever we have height and where we have also some space. We're gonna try and build certain sections for various types of equipment. I'm from Roslyn, old skier, so I mean I'm very heightened to what that needs. But we're also thinking about people that might be mountaineering and they want good gear for that, or people that want paddle boards and all sorts of stuff. So absolutely, because we know this is an active user base. We are planning more of these. So this is not, we're not, and I just want to be clear about this. We're not here to just pack this as some micro suite dormitory worker housing. Like, we're trying to build this to a really high design, and that the amenity area would be like that. And this is one of our demonstration projects. And we're also trying to get a high quality of tenant, because what we're building into our business model, we do have a website that you guys could go to just sort of see what our overall vision is, but it is to build a number of these. And for us as owners of this, because again, we're not stratifying this and walking away, we have to own this. We do not want a dormitory. What I don't like about the comparison to dorms is it's like a party palace where people just treat it like crap, and it's just, you're in and out. That's not what we're looking for. We're actually trying to create a community, and through our app and through how we're going to screen people, we actually want civically engaged people. And what I mean by that is we're going to, we want a diversity of people, all backgrounds, et cetera, but we want to find really great people that actually want to add value to the community, that might want to start our entrepreneurial, want to volunteer, and really get that, because we building the community and having tenants like that will, benefit everybody. Like we will give us no headaches. It'll create higher value and hopefully longer serving tenants. So we're just on a fundamental business level, we do not want this as a crash pad. It just doesn't help our model. And there's a few other things to that. We want users that are living in Pemberton primarily, and at the building as much as possible, because we do, through our curated sort of a community manager, like that manager isn't just there as a dorm advisor, because again, it's not student housing. They're there to take these people, help them get out to the mountains on the weekend, organize events for them. They're help, set up cooking, group cooking stuff in the amenity area. And it's really about making sure that we have a lot of churn in the building that way. So I think some of that stuff, I just want to get that out there on what we're trying to do, because it's not some of those things. And I've probably missed a couple of your questions. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, you didn't really address the entrance at the front of the building and how to.
Oh yeah, Scott, maybe I'll ask Scott to.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had some of the same concerns, and quite honestly, this is a pretty quick little design that we had put together to help get to the parking question. And I think it might be totally appropriate to have, we were talking about whether the entrance should be almost independent of the stair, so that you kind of make sure people walk through the common areas on their way out. There are fire issues and things like that we got to be careful of, but I think that switching the stair to the other face might be totally appropriate. This sort of comes from, we often get told the front door needs to address the street, and that's really where that comes from. But we could probably work the design in such a way that there's a good feeling of an entry on the other face as well. Right now, there's a kind of an equipment room there, but I think we could work the design. It might cost us one unit or something to get it all to work, but I think we could rework the design to do and kind of an entry facing both ways. That would be totally appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be a lot of if in this project. Just regarding to your bike room, looking at the basement plan right now, one bike room seems to be only 2 parking spaces wide. I don't know how you can round that up to 38 bicycle parking space, considering people have mountain bike with pretty wide handlebar. And yeah, could you speak a little bit more to that?
Sorry, I better. Yes. So yeah, we've sort of seen these high-low racks. We've done that a couple of times. I don't know if you know what they are, but they lift the front wheel up a little bit to help deal with the handlebars. So we've certainly done that in a couple of buildings. We've also put in, these double height racks. You need a little more aisle for those to get the bikes in. So the wider aisle, but then we can stack more bikes. So we've done some bike stackers in a couple of buildings. We could push the footprint of this building out further. It's not like we couldn't. And we've looked at that as well. It just cuts into the landscape. If we start to push the parkade beyond the bounds of the building, it's not going to help us in the parking side. It could help us in the bike side and storage side. And so those are things that we certainly could consider. And like I said, this was an early design trying to settle on, how many units would you be able to accommodate and how much parking could one accommodate. And I think, this is the amount of parking we can accommodate. We now just have to decide how many units we can support, and then does the financial model work with whatever number of units that becomes. That's really what we're talking about here. And that's why the parking question was so important to decide whether to launch this project seriously or not.
Perfect. I have no more question. Anybody got some? No.
Just an opportunity if there's any members of the public in attendance that would like to ask questions, they can use the raise hand feature. I'm not seeing any hands being raised here, so I will demote the applicants back to participants.
Perfect. We're back all together. Great. So I'll propose a resolution that we're not in support of this rezoning application. That would kind of cut it short. I would send them back to their drawing tables, as I believe there's too much if, and I don't believe at all in this housing typology, but it's a discussion, so feel free to go ahead. Yes, Brian.
I don't support this as yet. I don't think there's enough amenities for, was it 64 units, could be 100 people living there. I think, what, 4 washing machines. I'd almost think there should be an amenities on each floor, just doesn't seem, I don't like it.
I agree. No elevator as well, so if someone breaks their ankle skiing or snowboarding, they can access their dwelling. Go ahead, Colin.
As I'm not in support of this at all, as I think the design team's comment that they don't see the existing site as having a parking problem is not actual reality to what's going on site. And so this, I think, would just exacerbate the existing parking issue that we currently have.
Perfect. Lisa?
Well, I hesitate to say that I don't support it because I think there's some good aspects to it, but I think they've kind of put they've rushed the design of the building to try and get a conversation going about the parking. And they haven't really addressed the parking properly yet, based on 64 units. I could support the concept with less than 64 units. I guess it's a matter of, what can their business model support with 23 parking stalls? What's the minimum number of units to make this project viable for them? And then come back to us with that, and with a more refined building design. There's not much to support at this stage.
Perfect. So we all agree?
Yes.
Yes, I don't support this development.
Perfect. Perfect.
Um,
So
Scott, sorry, I just need to make sure this, I'll just ask for clarification if I may through the chair. So if you're choosing to not support it, are you choosing to not support it in its current form? Or like, is there any other wording you need to add? Just because you talked about making changes to the application?
yeah, I think we can say does not support the proposed development in its current form. That would be appropriate. I think we need housing, and I think we need to see that parcel being built, but not in this way, I would say.
Through the chair,
Yep.
is our issue, well, our issue is parking, but like, is it,
I believe there's
the number of
various
units, so we don't
issues.
support it in its current format based on the number of units being proposed. Is that what we're not supporting?
If
I think to the chair, I think that the issue is that we have to understand that this is a bedroom community to Whistler, and it needs to be designed as such. This idea that we need this type of housing for Pemberton only is not practical. So, you know, I would support this is if the design team realized that this would be housing for Whistler to support with the Whistler community, and that, you know, the realization that everybody needs to drive back and forth from that their job to back. And I would support that if that was the kind of the standard that we were designing to, and not this acknowledgement that that's not going to happen on the developer's part, which is not, you know, living in reality.
If I may, through the chair, I think it would be helpful for council if you could, as you know, thank you for providing your viewpoints. As Nikki has had it, and this is of course your resolution, so don't let me get too far ahead of you, but if you provide a resolution as what Nikki has, and then add, you know, subject, or what would the right language be? We do not support this proposal in its current form based on the following reasons, or something like that, and then you can go ahead and list out the main concerns.
Yeah, I agree. We kind of need to give a guidance to council as to why we are taking this decision. Yeah. So I believe Colin's reason is fair. I kind of agree with that. And I think Brian's comments were also pretty good about the amenities that are not provided sufficiently to considering the number of units also. And then there's the whole problem of zoning. So it's kind of a tree kind of aspect problematic I can see there. So zoning, the typology is not appropriate, and the amenities provided are not sufficient as well. So, okay, I'm gonna try and word that. So based on the following, yeah. And then you could add maybe like as an example, like Brian said, 4 washing machine for 60 unit. I think there is only like 2 oven proposed as well. No elevator proposed as well. Yeah, there's only 2 oven proposed.
Through the chair, just a
Yep.
comment. I don't think lack of an elevator is necessarily an issue, because there are other buildings without elevators. Sure, it's inconvenient, but you know, it is what it is. Elevators cost a lot of money to install and maintain. And I maybe feel that some of the things just haven't been, like, I think the drawings were very preliminary in terms of some of these things, but yeah, there needs to be laundry on each floor, in my opinion. But I think maybe they just haven't gotten to that stage. But I don't think an elevator is a deal breaker, in my opinion.
I think
as long as there's amenities on each floor.
I think a lack of an elevator doesn't promote accessibility for the disabled. So they're talking about community, and then they're excluding a whole part of the population from this community.
Yeah, and if you want to bring your skis upstairs, you would have to take 3 flights of stairs. Same thing with your other sports gear, you know, so I agree that it's not a big problematic, but it's just one of the problematic that I see on this building. So
Well, I think it also speaks to the design philosophy. So if they want to talk about community and then not provide accessibility, then those things are contradictory in nature.
yeah. Why provide a ramp if you don't provide access to the other floors, you know?
Yeah, that makes
It's, yeah.
Through the chair, if I may, so it just really helps if you say out loud exactly what you want.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to come up with like good looking, clean sentences. And so, for the following reason, amenity proposals are not sufficient. For example, the number of washing machine, having only one common kitchen on the first floor. I would say also the bicycle parking seems to be very small, so I don't think they will accommodate the number they are proposing. I think it's a bit far stretched as well. Go ahead, Ryan.
I just think they just need more storage in the parking for skis and that kind of thing, because there's absolutely no storage in the unit. So I just think they need to add more. There's just a lack of storage.
Yeah, you could replace bicycle parking by storage, like a general storage.
Yeah.
Do we want to mention they might want to rethink the location of the entrance, of the main entrance, or is that just me?
Me personally, I don't have a problem with the location of the entrance. I think it kind of structure a little bit the corner, which is at the same time the entrance of the village as well. But if other people,
I'm just curious as to how you would get there. Like I guess if you're getting off the bus, it's right there. But if,
Yeah, with that location, I kind of see this as people working in Whistler, so they would be coming out that door, getting on the bus, going to Whistler, and getting off the bus. And that's their entrance, right?
Yeah.
This really does seem like a Whistler housing kind of building.
I think there's lots of young people in town that would also utilize it, but who knows?
Yeah.
yeah, there's too much if in this project to be moved forward. I think like it's rely too much on hypothesis and presumption that are very discutable, I would say. Following reason would be also the reduction to the parking minimums.
Yeah, I would think with at least one parking unit per parking
unit.
stall per unit. So
Reduction to the parking minimums are not appropriate, but we can just say reduction to the parking minimum.
Concern over the parking variance.
Yeah, concerns, yeah. And then in terms of architecture and design, I believe there's some work to be done. I don't think the climbing plants are going to survive a summer in Pemberton. So, yeah.
they also mentioned that there was no confirmation of building height. Are we confirmed that it's going to meet the height variance?
It's only a 3-story building. I think it's shorter than the one beside it. So I think it will.
I don't know if you guys all agree, but I think maybe also they could treat a little bit differently the roof, so it kind of brings some continuity with the Mile One. I always forget the name of this building, but the one where the Mile One eatery is. It's kind of a beacon for people when you talk about someone who's out of town about this building. They're like, oh, the building with the tower and the kind of clock on it. So I would be afraid that this would kind of hide a little bit this building and would be just basically a rectangle volume at the entrance of the city that would just look like any other generic apartment building that we can see in other cities, basically. But that's my personal opinion on the architecture and the form with regards to the general context and built environment. But I believe our resolution is sufficient like that, so.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Colin and Lisa as well?
Yeah, I'm good.
Perfect. So as a chair, following resolution is proposed so that the Advisory Design Review Commission recommends that council does not support the proposed development permit number 88, co-living at 7340 Kralapple Court in its current format based on the following reasons. Amenities proposed are not sufficient. For example, the number of washing machine, having only one common kitchen, lack of general storage, and we also have concerns over the proposed parking variance. I'm asking for a seconder. Brian, perfect. All in favor?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I can ask for, do I need to ask for the next meeting for the recommendation that the next ADRC meeting occurs on August 25th, 2022, if required?
If required.
Perfect. So seconder, Brian, all in favor? All right. So as a chair, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is that okay? Perfect. Brian, all in favor? Great. Perfect. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the week.
You too.